On the first day of January 1892, they opened Ellis Island and they let the people through. And the first to cross the threshold of that Isle of Hope and Tears was Annie Moore from Ireland, who was only 15 years. Isle of Hope, Isle of Tears, Isle of Freedom, Isle of Fears, but it's not the isle you left behind. That Isle of Hunger, Isle of Pain, Isle you'll never see again, but the Isle of Home is always on your mind. In her little bag she carried all her past and history, and her dreams for the future in the land of liberty. And courage is the passport when your old world disappears, 'cause there's no future in the past when you're 15 years. Isle of Hope, Isle of Tears, Isle of Freedom, Isle of Fears, but it's not the isle you left behind. That Isle of Hunger, Isle of Pain, Isle you'll never see again, but the Isle of Home is always on your mind. When they closed down Ellis Island in 1943, 17 million people had come there for sanctuary. And in springtime when I came here and I stepped onto its piers, I thought of how it must have been when you were 15 years. Isle of Hope, Isle of Tears, Isle of Freedom, Isle of Fears, but it's not the isle you left behind. That Isle of Hunger, Isle of Pain, Isle you'll never see again, but the Isle of Home is always on your mind.
Well, I'm delighted to be here sitting across from the man who first recorded Isle of Hope, Isle of Tears way back when we both were younger. So how did you get it, or why did you record it?
Well, we recorded at that time, Dolores and myself, as a duet.
Yeah.
And it's a fabulous song. It's just one of those songs, I'm singing it now for the last, 25 odd years. And it just resonates, and maybe it's the real story that a lot of people know, but when you hear it put into songs, and it just encapsulates the whole situation of immigration at that time. But I sing that song every night at every concert. It's just one of those songs that's probably the most popular song I sing.
Yeah, it's wonderful to be at your concert and be sitting there and hear people around me singing it.
They all sing it and they all want to sing it, and they get you, like, you look around at their faces, it does bring a lot of people to tears in an emotional way, but I think that's the healing in the song, that there is a richness about that.
I suppose this is where the song Isle of Hope, Isle of Tears really started, because it was inspired by this young woman here, Annie Moore, who is with her two younger brothers, Philip and Anthony, as they set off for America from here, Cove, which was then known as Queenstown, up until 1921, I think. And they were heading to America to join Annie's parents, who had gone out before them. When Annie and her two brothers arrived in America, their newfound land, they disembarked at Ellis Island on the 1st of January 1892, the very day that Ellis Island opened up as an immigration centre for the United States. So a gentleman, I think he was an Austrian gentleman, who was to be first off, stood back, let the young girl and her two brothers step ashore. Our Annie never moved very far from where she landed. She lived on the Lower East Side of New York. And they found that she was buried in an unmarked pauper's grave in Calvary Cemetery in Queens. So her descendants decided to erect a memorial over the previously unmarked grave. I just wanted to say a couple of things about the song and the history. At the time I wrote the song, the given word was that Annie was 15 and it was her 15th birthday. Now, the ship's passenger list listed her as being 13 years of age, and subsequently I found out that she was in fact 17. The other point is there was a question about the number of people who went through Ellis Island. And I used the figure 17 million, which the Encyclopedia Britannica give, but that may have included people who left and came back again. So how did the song itself come about? Well, I had never been to the United States before 1993, and when I went, one of the places I wanted to go to discover a bit about our own history as a country was Ellis Island. So in the springtime of 1993, I went there and I saw the complementary sculpture to this one that Jenny Reinhardt had also made of Annie and her brothers arriving in America. And I heard recordings by now older women who had gone through there as young women. And as I went to get the boat back to Manhattan, the thought struck me, I wonder what it was like for a 15-year-old girl, leaving everything behind. And I recognized that then Annie was the emblem not just for the Irish who had gone to America, but for all who had traveled to America's waiting shore.
In this particular song, Isle of Hope, Isle of Tears, Brendan Graham breaks from his typical modus operandi by writing about an historical figure. Her name is Annie Moore, and she actually left Ireland and came to America at the age of 15. Right away, we are pulled into the world of wonder. Brendan Graham even mentions the idea of wondering about her, and all 15-year-old immigrant girls, as they might have felt at having to emigrate. Traveling abroad to the USA, she's said to have carried a little bag, but in it, and here's where his brilliance comes in, Brendan talks about that in the bag is her passport of courage. All of her history is contained in that little bag, in her mental bag, so to speak, but of course, the other shoe falls by Brendan Graham's emphasis on the mental image, the mental history of her homeland of Ireland. But more than that, Brendan Graham once again takes us through those juxtaposed elements that we are so familiar with inside of his songs. Hope versus tears, freedom versus fears, a land one will never see again, but that land is always on one's mind. It's very, very powerful. And of course, more powerful because it's actually based on a real historical figure.
Well, this next song, The Coast of Labrador, came about in a kind of random way, as often songs do. One doesn't have a great plan all the time. And it was my good friend Dennis Carey, wonderful musician and composer, who sent me a number of his melodies and suggested that I might find something that would inspire a lyric, and indeed I did. And it was a tune of Dennis's that had some connection to or inspiration from Canada, from Newfoundland and that area where Dennis had been. So I began to look at the history between Canada and Ireland, of which there is a lot, but in particular I came across the initial fishing expeditions from the southeast coast of Ireland, the Dacia area, Waterford and those areas, to the east coast of Canada, the cod fishermen, who went and came back and then eventually went for longer, and then some of them settled in. And this is going back hundreds of years. And what intrigued me was that some of them brought their hurling sticks with them. And we know from annals that hurling on ice was played on the River Shannon in Tipperary, so it wasn't new to them. So that really appealed to me, the notion that the Irish men who went, settled there, married locals, brought with them not just their culture but their sporting activities, and that really became the kernel of the song. So when the song was finished, as always I'm thinking, who would be the best storyteller to carry the story, because it is really a story song, and the one person and the one voice that came to mind was Sean Keane. And then another event happened. I became aware that it was Canada's 150th anniversary of independence, so we thought, well, wouldn't it be nice to connect the song with that?
Well, back a few years ago when I was lucky enough that Brendan phoned me to see if I would do this song, The Coast of Labrador, and had a look at the lyrics and had a listen to it, and it's not my first song written by this man here, but that song resonated in a way that I suppose in a kind of a special way with me, because Newfoundland is a place that I spent a bit of time in. Back in 1982 was my first visit to Newfoundland. I went there for a festival that lasted a weekend, but I stayed there for almost 2.5 weeks. Broke after the first weekend, but I still had a wonderful time. A place I find fascinating, and the most fascinating thing I find about it is the accents that the people have. They're exactly the same as the Irish accents here, and especially in the south of Ireland, in Waterford and that area. It's, how are you going by? And I'd have to ask people, are you Irish or are you Newfoundlander? But fascinating. I had a great time there, and the music is the same as it was here, as it was brought by the immigrants that settled in Newfoundland down through the centuries. And of course, again, to think that ice hockey may have come from the playing of the hurling, it makes perfect sense, because I know that as a young fella playing hurling myself, that it's nice to hit your sliotar around, and if you can only do it on ice and it's the only thing available, then why not give it a go? I was delighted to do the song, and I'm delighted. It's a lovely song to sing, and it resonates with the people in Newfoundland as well, because I know that from the response I get from there, from a lot of fans that I have in Newfoundland. Delighted and a pleasure to do the song.
So then, Sean, after you had recorded it, it happened to be the 150th anniversary coming up of Canada's independence, so the natural thing, I guess, was to send it to the Canadian ambassador at the time, and we got a very positive response from him. So the song got its premiere in Waterford, in the town hall there, which was built by the money that the cod fishermen brought home with them.
Yeah. It's amazing how the stories, once you start a song with a little spark of a nucleus, I can only imagine it's how exciting it is when it grows and grows and you get more information about it. And as you said, to be in the town hall in Waterford that was built by the people who immigrated to Newfoundland. It was amazing.
And with the Canadian ambassador, so it kind of had come around full circle from something that didn't have any plan at all apart from to let the song speak.
Yeah.
On the coast of Labrador are codfish galore. We catch them and we salt them by the score. Since first I left Ramore, evermore, to plough the salty coast of Labrador. All the way, all the livelong day, till I will see my Inuit girl once more. She keeps me well and warm through ice and sea and storm, and I'll babby safe from harm on the coast of Labrador. And when the ice is thick, with me slitter and my stick, I'll show him how we play those games of yore. By the Barrow and the North, on Jish's shore, now we hurl the frozen coast of Labrador. All the way, all the livelong day, till I will see my Inuit girl once more. She keeps me well and warm through ice and sea and storm, and I'll babby safe from harm on the coast of Labrador. All the way, all the livelong day, till I will see my Inuit girl once more. She keeps me well and warm through ice and sea and storm, and I'll babby safe from harm on the coast of Labrador.
This song is called The Fair-Haired Boy, and it's a song of immigration, and the story is a familiar one. It's of a young couple parting, the boy going to far off America, probably never returning, so it would be a common sight during the time of the Great Famine. And this is also one of the songs I wrote as a soundtrack to the book, The Whitest Flower.
So this is a song I've been singing for over 20 years. It was on an early Dervish album, I think, the album Spirit. It's a song called The Fair-Haired Boy, and what I really love about it is it like some of the really old traditional songs, it has what's called the snaim graw in the last verse, where the lovers, because they can't be together on this earth, they entwine, the trees grow from their grave, and these trees intertwine, becoming a lover's knot or a snaim graw. Fair-haired boy.
Oh, my fair boy, no more I'll see you walk the meadows green, or hear your song run through the fields like yon mountain stream. Your ship waits all joy is gone that we once knew, all sorrow newly found. Soon you'll in California be, or Colorado bound. Let no sad tear now stain your cheek as we kiss our last goodbye. Think not upon when we might meet, my love, my fair-haired boy. If not in life, we'll be as one, then in death we'll be, and there will grow two hawthorn trees above my love and me, and they will reach up to the sky, intertwined be, and the hawthorn flower will bloom where I, my fair-haired boy, and me, and the hawthorn flower will bloom where I, my fair-haired boy, and me.
At first blush, this might strike the novice as just another emigration song. The boy goes off, the girl stays behind. So it falls into the genre of the pining girl at home motif. We find it in Teddy O'Neill. We find it in Fields of Athenry, and even Leaving My Nancy O. But what Brendan Graham does in The Fair-Haired Boy is take the song to a new level. For example, he includes the motifs that we might be familiar with, such as don't pine for me, don't mourn for me, don't cry, don't lament, don't futurize, I'll be okay. So she's more or less playing the role of the tough girl left at home. On the other hand, we have the sense that we're in the world of fairy to a large extent, because there's the mention of the hawthorn tree. The hawthorn tree is a common motif in many songs. We know that it's associated with the crown of thorns. We know that it's a hardwood that's often used for divining. We know that it's associated with death, but we also think of the hawthorn tree as magical and mystical. It's part of the May, which is so prevalent in Ireland at the springtime. So what happens in the song is, as it moves along, we are not there in the new immigration world. We're not even there in the world that's been left behind, but rather we're in the fairy world, perhaps, because at the end of the song, the woman is saying, we may never see one another again, but we'll be buried together. How does that happen? Well, of course, all kinds of strange things can happen in the world of fairy. Perhaps they're buried together beneath that hawthorn tree, beneath that mystical, magical tree that brings it all back home. So when we put all of these elements together, we find that Fair-Haired Boy is much more than a typical emigration song. Rather, couched within it, intertwining folk motifs like the tree in which they'll be united in death, the notion of pining girls, and then the twist into the fairy world with the intertwining of the tree branches where the two lovers will be reunited even though they may never see one another again. It's quite striking how this song all fits together.
So another part of the Irish story abroad was the story of the San Patricio regiment in Mexico. And these were a mixture of Irish people and Germans and so on, who were fighting on the American side and decided to change and fight on the Mexican side. And the whole notion of, you know, the fight for Irish freedom and the Republic was strong. So I've long been an admirer of Paddy Moloney and the Chieftains. So when Paddy approached me and said he was doing an album about the story of the San Patricios and would I work with him on a couple of songs, I was delighted to do so. And one of the songs was called March to Battle, and then a central part of it was Across the Rio Grande. So I wrote the lyric to that, and it was meant to be sung, and in discussions with Paddy I suggested maybe it should be spoken because it's the cornerstone of the story. So Paddy thought that was a good idea, and he said, who would we get? And I said, well, there's only one voice that you could get that will deliver that with great authenticity, and that's Liam Neeson. So Paddy approached Liam, and Liam agreed to do it, and it ended up then on the San Patricio album with the Chieftains and a host of guests from Roy Cooder and Liam Neeson in the centre of it all, telling the story.
We are the San Patricios, a brave and gallant band. There'll be no white flag flying within this green command. We are the San Patricios. We have but one demand: to see the Yankees safely home across the Rio Grande. When at Churubusco we made our final stand, no court of justice did we have in the land of Uncle Sam. As traitors and deserters all, we would be shot or hanged, far from the green, green Shamrock shore, across the Rio Grande. Disappeared from history like footprints in the sand. But our song is in the tumbleweed, and our blood is in this land. But if in the desert moonlight you see a ghostly band, we are the men who died for freedom across the Rio Grande. We are the San Patricios, a brave and gallant band.
You might well ask the question why this next song is here. It's a song called "O America." And to me, it's natural that it should be in these songs of the diaspora, because as our people went abroad, they brought their songs with them into every corner of America. Some of the Irish songs became American songs. So I was in America. I was in a well-known hotel in Hollywood, walking down the corridor, and I heard what I thought to be an Irish melody on a fiddle. And I didn't know where the sound was coming from. And later I was at a showcase by a young American pianist called William Joseph, and he played this melody. And it struck me it had Irish strains in it. So I asked his permission if I could try to put a lyric to it, which he generously gave. So when I got back to Ireland, I was thinking about it and the connection, you know, with the music travelling across the Atlantic and the strains I heard in this song. And it struck me that it should be a love song to America, the place where many of our people went to. I don't know what William had in mind for the song, but I think he called it Sweet Remembrance of You, so it was a love song. So it was with some trepidation I sent the lyrics off to him. He liked them, and subsequently the song went on to be recorded by a number of groups, Celtic Woman, and then by Anthony Kearns, and ended up being performed a couple of times on Capitol Hill and at various other important days in the life of the American people.
I had the great honour of performing the song at many venues and on TV, particularly for President Obama. Actually, it was John Boehner's luncheon held on the 15th of March, and in attendance was President Obama and Joe Biden. It was a fantastic honour, and the song lends itself. It's one of those songs that when it builds and builds and builds and it gets to the climatic ending, the impulse is to jump up. And that's what President Obama did. He was the first up applauding, and the rest followed. And that's, Brendan has a knack with songs like that, but it's a powerful song, bringing the people together, calling them to come together as one. I had the great honour of performing "O America" in California, in Los Angeles, December of 2018. It was a fundraiser for America Salutes You, which raises funds for injured military men and women. So it was a great cause, but I was the odd man out at the party because they were all rock and roll stars. But the song just shows you how it translates and transfers, because performing it for President Obama and the people in the room, the same effect with rock and rollers, and they had their beer in their hand, and it's in a kind of a nightclub room, and the same reaction. The crowd went wild. I moved to America because the bulk of my work is there. I love getting back home to Ireland, but the audiences in America and North America and Canada for me. I've travelled all over East, West, Midwest of Canada and all over the United States. The Irish are everywhere, and we carry our songs. They are the foundation, in my book, they are the foundation to what has made America great. Since the Civil War, the Irish have been there, and before it, there's a connection with the past and the future. Oh, America, you're calling. I can hear you calling me. You are calling me to be true to thee, true to thee. I will be. Oh, America, no weeping. Let there be no wounded heart. I will keep you in my keeping till there be a new start. And I will answer you, and I will take your hand and lead you to the sun. And I will stand by you, do all that I can do, and we will be as one. Oh, America, I hear you from your prairies to the sea, from your mountains grand, and all through this land. You are beautiful to me. Oh, America, you're calling. I can hear you calling me. You are calling me to be true to thee, true to thee. I will be. And we will be as one. Oh, America, you're calling. I will ever answer Well, the Irish Tenors were very fortunate to have the honour of recording on Ellis Island. It's a remarkable place, and it's the first port of entry for a lot of people, not just the Irish, into the United States of America. And in our song selection for that show, this was our third TV special, so we were on a roll, and this was the icing on the cake. And we went through hundreds of songs. But as we were wrapping up our song selection process, Bill Hughes, the producer of the TV show, decided to bring in one more song, and he brought in what people, the younger people today, might not know as a cassette tape. And he played none other than Sean Keane singing this song we'd never heard before, called Isle of Hope, Isle of Tears. And we all sat around the room. We had had a long, long day, and that song just resonated with all of us in the room. And it was the glove that fitted the hand. I mean, it all came together. The Irish Tenors, on the top tier of the world in the music at that time, performing on Ellis Island, performing a song, a poignant song, telling the story of the first person, a young girl entering Ellis Island on the 1st of January 1892 with her siblings. So it was appropriate that we got to perform it, and in the right location. And then on top of that, we had Martin Sheen as our presenter of the show, which was really the icing on the whole thing. And it was a resounding success, and it resonated with Irish Americans and Irish all over, really.
On the very day she passed through here, it was New Year's Day, 1892.
cross the threshold of the Isle of Hope and Tears was Annie Moore from Ireland, who was all of 15 years. Isle of Hope, Isle of Tears, Isle of Freedom, Isle of Fears, but it's not the Isle I left behind. That Isle of hunger, Isle of pain, Isle you'll never see again, but the Isle of Home is always on your mind.
Al zuten eman zidaten, ta erakutsi itzultzen, haundia banago ere, zure albora etortzen. Kanashimi